our day 2 session, and also to understand that we are here to participate, we are here to engage so that we can learn from it. Allow me to share with you that Dr. Job Mogire is called for this mission work of helping to coach us, helping to empower us to the next level. He's also a heart doctor and is the founder of House of Mastery, runs many sessions every year, Momentum Breakthrough. And this year, we are doing a 5-day challenge of Momentum of Return 90, and we are on day 2. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Dr. Job Mogire to come on the podium.
Thank you, Gladys, and good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Here we are on day 2. I would like you to go to your chat box and I need you just to be honest. Did you do day 1 assignment? Sit with a question and write a reply to that letter. Just go to either you did it or did not. You just need to be honest, and you're being honest with yourself. The rest of us, every one of us has their own task to do. So just go to the chat box and say, did you do it? Did you almost do it? Almost doesn't count, but here I will give you the grace. Did you write a reply to that letter? Did you reply to the letter that came to you from you? I wrote it, but the power of that exercise is in you responding. I'm going to just take a quick look and see other responses. I did it. I have less than 10. I would like you to respond whether you did it or not. This is not the place where, this is not a classroom. Nobody's scoring you. It is saying your truth. And anytime we do not say the truth because of other people, we are running. We are running from ourselves, unfortunately. You just have to, to actually, this is how we begin to see. And because I know something about the structure of this program, and therefore I know something about the structure of this program. So I'm watching to see, okay, great. It's whether or not you've done the assignment. The most important thing is, are you at a place where you are willing to see? To see, your eyes are open to actually see, because the story, the past story, can continue controlling what happens now, or you can shift into a new story. When we begin Return 90 at the beginning of the year, the theme of 2026 will be the year you remember what matters. And what matters must be something that you actually see. And this is how we begin to see. So thank you for all those of you who have replied. We have about 35, at least 35 participants in the room. Could you please type your reply? Type your reply and we will get started. If you are joining us for the first time, my name is Dr. Job Mogire. I am a heart doctor here in the US, but I started off in Kenya. I practiced medicine for 8 years in Kenya before I relocated. And that's the time when I started a business called the House of Mastery, which I would say that I've done more reading on the topics that relate to House of Mastery than even in medicine, even if specializing in medicine requires me to read a lot. This is day 2 of the 5-day return challenge. Last night, some of you might not have slept very well. And I know because I have been there. Therefore, when this assignment sits and done, it's either you saw it and somehow you couldn't get yourself to do it, or subconsciously it was just easier not to see it, even if it came to your email. And that is, I'm not judging you in any way. My only challenge to you is, are you willing to see the truth? If this was an application to receive 200 shares of Safaricom, there's a good chance you probably might have done it. You see, when someone puts language to something that you've been running from, even if it's subconsciously, sleep can become unpredictable, because those words will follow you. there are things once you see them, you cannot unsee. And this is one of those areas. If you journaled or you started doing this exercise, I know that some of you probably started sentences that you could not finish. Some of you remembered a no from the past that you have been answering ever since. Maybe it's from one of your teachers or one or both of your parents or siblings or some other authority figures. And that's why I approach this work with a lot of tenderness, because this is very delicate work. When this kind of shift that requires you to see, when it begins to happen, it can feel like falling, and that's okay. That's what is supposed to happen. Yesterday, we named the running, or at least the beginning of the running. We saw that you can win your way to exile just as easily as you can waste your way there. That was the beginning. Tonight we go deeper. The main focus for tonight is to look at a lie, the lie underneath the running. The lie that underlies all the running, what the running actually costs, and how to recognize the specific hunger that is driving your life. Are you willing to see how the hunger, the longing that influences your life the most shows up? Because if we can name the hunger, we can stop feeding it the wrong thing. This son left home, went to a far country. He was hungry to return home, but he thought he was hungry for the pods the pigs were being given. And therefore, he had a legitimate hunger to come back home and be received and to reconnect, but he was feeding it with whatever he could find. In this case, what he could find was the pods the pigs were being given. By seeing the hunger and learning how to feed it the correct way, this is how you remember what matters. This is how I remember what matters. So before we go to the famine, and I hope you read that passage again, I want us to name something. There is a lie underneath all the running, and I call it the then belief. The then belief, and it sounds like this: when I achieve X, then I will be enough. When I reach Y, then I will be secure. When Z acknowledges me, then I will matter. Then. Always then. From that passage in Luke, the son's version was simple. I think he thought, when I am free, when I am on my own terms, when I have proven myself in a far country, then I will finally feel significant. Then I will finally feel alive and in control. Then I will finally feel certain. And I look back at my own life, and I think mine for a long time was when I have enough credentials, when no one can ever say no to me again like that man did, then I will finally be legitimate. Then the unwanted will finally be wanted. I wonder, just based on everything you heard yesterday, any of the reflections that you did, whether intentionally or the questions that followed you today, I wonder what your version might be. Might it be, when I build the business, then? When I hit this amount of income number, then? When my parents finally approve, then? When I lose the weight, then? When I fix the marriage, then? When I finish the degree, then? The then belief. This is the engine of all the running. The belief that home lies somewhere ahead. The belief that arrival lives somewhere in the future. The belief that you are not yet who you need to be, and that becoming who you need to be requires you living where you are. But then keeps moving. You achieve X, and X becomes Y. You reach the goal, and a new goal arises. You finish the project, and a new project, a bigger project, a deeper focus, higher KPIs show up. The finish line keeps relocating the moment you cross it. As a result, then does not lead you home, then leads you into exile. It keeps you running toward a horizon that never gets closer, a horizon that keeps shifting all the while. Your home, your real, authentic, emotional home, the part of you that came here that cannot be touched by failure, by success, by praise, it remains behind you. If you remember from the passage, the text says, the son gathered everything and set off for a distant country, because then it requires you to go somewhere else in terms of time, somewhere else in terms of focus. In this case, the far country is not just a place. It takes many forms. It's an attitude, it's a mindset, it's a mentality. The far country is anywhere you go to meet your longings apart from relationship. Relationship with your core self, relationship with the closest people around you, relationship with God and how you define God. It's the far country is any life built on then instead of now. Anything that is built on then and not now, that's a far country. Any identity constructed out there to avoid being known here, out there to avoid being present here, out there to avoid being uncomfortable here, out there to avoid being real here and now. The trouble is that far countries are usually respectable. Some of us build ours inside work. We stay late because being present at home asks questions we do not want to answer or we do not feel ready to answer. We keep moving because stillness, settling with what is here, feels uncomfortable and we can't tell why. Some of us, me included, we build our far country inside achievement. Another degree, another promotion, another credential. We call it growth, and it's very convincing, but underneath it, it is escape. Some of us build our far country inside service. We stay so busy helping others that nobody knows or even notices that we are disappearing, even from our own lives, from our own needs. We call it sacrifice, but in truth, it is hiding. Some of us build it in busyness. There is always something to be done. Sometimes it's something big, including respectable, reasonable goals. Sometimes it's something that doesn't even add anything. If I'm not busy building a business, I can be busy scrolling. Like, busyness does not need anything valuable. Business will find a way to express itself. The far country is anywhere you are driven to be impressive without being truly known, being intimate, being present with yourself, with the closest people, with your creator. Anywhere that you can be useful without being known is a far country. Anywhere the then belief, then I will be, then I will have, anywhere that belief keeps you striving toward a destination that does not even exist, a finish line that doesn't exist. I want you to try something right now. And some of you were uncomfortable when I made the first request. This is the second one, okay? If you have not been running, this assignment is not for you. You are excused. But if You have been running. We are preparing to cross into the year of remembering what matters, the year of seeing what matters. If you have been running, if you recognize yourself anywhere in anything I have described, if there is a far country that you might have been living in or traveling to frequently, I want you to take the courage and type the word running in the chat. And this is not to shame yourself. This is to take the boldness of seeing yourself, because this is what being known means. That you are willing to share that truth. You don't need to tell people everything, but there are things you stop hiding or holding under wraps, because what that happens is it allows you to not even see it yourself. My hand is up. I've never run a marathon, but my friend, am I not a runner? Like I could have won, records and records of running. I grew up a thick boy. I'm not slender, I'm not built to run, but my goodness, the amount of running I have done. I just want you to know that you are not alone. You just need to look. I don't know if we have any responses. You just need to look at the chat box and realize that sometimes you are hiding your own running when you are seated with runners. You are on a race, but everyone is trying to create an image, and yet this is something we all share. And so that when we are in this family, in this for the remaining 4 days here, this is the one place. You don't try to tell us anything we don't need to know, but it is time for me and you to acknowledge that truth that opens the egg so that the chick can actually hatch, that opens the cocoon so that the butterfly can begin to pop out, for a bit of light to go through. Because the running is not your fault. The running is not your fault. You just have to remember the then belief. This is what the then belief does when your real longings get hijacked by a lie. The book of Luke, the text says, after he had squandered everything, there arose a severe famine in that country, and he began to be in want. And this line is very paradoxical, because this line makes us think that he began to be in want when he ran out of money. No, he was driven by his want. The difference here is that this is just a want. It's more of a surface. He is hungry, physically hungry, but he had a longing driving him from the day he left home. So he had always been in want. It's just that that want was covered up because he was still distracted. He had some horizon to move to until he ran out of steam and he could no longer move anywhere. And two things happened. He spent everything and the famine came. And these two are not related. And watch how the far country works. Because that far country, whether it is work or business or service or achievement, whatever it is, that far country works the same way as the far country this young man went to. As long as he had money, he had friends. As long as he could spend, he could belong. And you see that word, belong and longing. Sometimes we replace this fulfillment of our longing. We sacrifice our longing just to belong, not realizing that any belonging that sacrifices your longing sacrifices a part of you, sacrifices a part of your reality, your truth. It leaves you hungry. Any belonging that diminishes or distracts you or limits the extent to which you can meet your longing. Just as long as he had money to spend, he could belong, but he is spending money to belong while his longing remains unfulfilled. As long as he was useful, he was wanted. But the famine exposed what was always true. The friends were never friends. The workmates were never really workmates. They were just convenient. The belonging was never belonging. It was transaction dressed as relationship. How many times do we get caught up in transactions dressed as relationship? This is the economy of the far country. Your worth equals your output. Your belonging depends on your usefulness. You are what you produce. And the famine is not just about money in this story. The famine for this young man is when his strategies stop feeding his longing. The strategy of belonging, the strategy of sharing his money was never at any time feeding his core longing, because the longing is what drove him away from home. The tragedy is that we can be admired and starving at the same time. And that's why you will see sometimes, unfortunately, some lives taken from people who you would think they have everything. That's because you can be admired. You can be admired. You can be admired and starving at the same time. It's possible that some of us are in famine right now. We thought the promotion will quiet the pressure, but it did not. We thought the marriage would settle us and give us something substantive. But even in the marriage, we still feel alone. We thought if we made our family proud, we would feel peace. But despite the striving and the achievement, the peace did not come. We thought if we got the title, that emptiness will lift. It did not lift. That is famine. The far country has run out of what it promised. The text in Luke says, so he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country. He went and hired himself to a citizen of that country. That is step one. But it gets even worse. The citizen of that country sent him to the fields. He sent him to the fields. He didn't send him to the shop. He didn't send him to the supermarket, to the granaries. He sent him to the fields. And then there is a third layer of law, to feed swine. In Jewish culture, you couldn't go any lower than that. To feed pigs, swine. And he longed, that is the fourth layer. Just think of him as being in a pit, and he's falling into the pit, and there are several layers. The first layer is going out to hire himself. A son who came from a wealthy home going to hire himself, that is falling into level 1. Level 2, he's sent to the fields. Level 3, it's not just the fields, it's to feed swine. Level 4, he's not just feeding swine. He is desiring to eat what the swine eat. Level 5 is desiring even what the swine want, but he doesn't even get that. So he has the environment of the swine, he has the smell of the swine. Everything that can happen in a swine environment, he has it, except what he wants. What he wants is just something to eat. And no one gave him anything. That is how the far country operates. A Jewish son raised in a good home, now standing in mud, surrounded by pigs. The smell is getting into his clothes, into his skin, into his hair. And notice, no one gave him anything. Not because he was different, but because something was different now. He was no longer useful. He no longer had money. He no longer had anything for transaction, because it was never a relationship. It was always a transaction. And this is when the far country reveals itself. When you have nothing left to offer, the far country has nothing left to give. But here is for me where the story, it takes a turn. If this was a movie, this is where the music changes. The pig pen is not punishment. The pig pen is grace. The pig pen is grace, because the pig pen is the first honest place he has been since he left home. Since he left home, he was in transaction after transaction after transaction after transaction. The first honest place where he is, where he faces, where he realizes that regardless of everything, that longing was never fulfilled. Because he kept wanting and longing for the next lower thing, to the point where he longed for the pots the pigs were eating, but nobody could even give him that. Until the pig pen comes as a mirror to show him how far he has deviated from home. He not only went away to a far country, he went into the strongest stench of smell he could ever be in mud. He is disappearing to where people don't even remember him. He is surrounded by pigs, because he disconnected from a relationship with his father, with his people, but most importantly, he disconnected from a relationship with himself. The pig pen is where the mask dissolves, where you finally see what was always true. And your challenge during these 5 days to give yourself the openness to see what is true. Some of these small assignments that come, the small tasks, type something, these are opportunities to see what was always true. A chance for us to step out of transaction when we can in small ways, to begin to see, get ready for 2026, because 2026 is the year you remember what matters. Because the truth is, you cannot be healed of a wound that you will not look at. You cannot return from a far country you will not admit you are in. So this brings us to this question. What are you actually hungry for? Maybe write that question down in first person. What am I actually hungry for? I want you to write it down, especially if I would prefer during this challenge if you actually use a pen and paper, not computer. Write the question down. And I would like you to type done once you've typed the question. What are you hungry for? What am I hungry for? I'd like to see a couple of responses. What are you hungry for? What am I hungry for? Thank you for those responses. There are 6 deep needs that show up in every life. I have seen them in my patients, I've seen them in my coaching clients, I've seen them in myself. These needs are part of what makes us human. So the problem is not having them. The problem is not knowing their names. Because when you do not know what you are hungry for, you will eat for anything. You will reach for what is available, not what you need. And I would like to walk you through them. Whether or not you've seen them before, I want you to listen for yourself and notice which one or which ones hit home deepest. The first one is the need for safety. That's the need for certainty. This is the need to feel settled, to feel grounded. The need to live in such a way that you're not always bracing for the next blow to show up from nowhere. This is one of the most influential needs. And when this need is driving your life, you carry that inner voice that keeps saying, I have to control this or something bad will happen. It may show up in other people's expectations. You need to be more careful. You cannot afford to fail. You need to aim higher. And sometimes it shows up as a way to carry the sense that we can never fully rest or step away, because when we do that is when things fall apart. So what we do, we overwork, we overthink, we delay decisions because we are afraid of getting it wrong, sometimes even when it's very simple decisions. We try to over-control, we overthink, we run into decision paralysis. This is how our need for certainty, when it's hijacked by then belief, shows up. The counterfeit of certainty is control. You think because you are controlling what is going on, you are achieving certainty, but you are not. Because when you micromanage everything, when you over-control, when you overthink everything, the cost is your peace. The second need is the need for variety. The other way to frame it is aliveness. This is the need to feel awake in your own life. To feel like you are living in an engaged way and not just surviving your schedule and surviving for the weekend. This is the need that is expressing itself when you find yourself thinking that there has to be more than this. You achieve something, your mind asks, is that it? That is the hunger for aliveness showing up. When you feel restless, sometimes when you find yourself Googling things up, opening 73 tabs, opening Facebook on the laptop and Instagram on the phone and Twitter on the tablet, the TV is on, you're watching Netflix, but you're searching for stimulation. That is a counterfeit way in which your need for variety shows up, where you end up receiving variety, but you're receiving empty variety that does not satisfy that hunger. And that's why we keep searching for the end of social media. We keep scrolling, hoping that we can get to the bottom of it. When that need is not met, when your need for variety, for aliveness is not met, you have this sense that your life is happening to you rather than through you. And when this need is not met for a long time, you default back to seeking certainty. So you default back to trying to control things. So you try to control your time. You stay busy because quietness feels uncomfortable. A quietness feels uncomfortable because you have a need for variety, but you always end up feeding your need for variety with things that do not meet that need. They just cover the surface. You chase new things because slow progress feels unbearable. You start pursuing a goal, right? But you cannot stay there long enough because it's too slow. You distract yourself with noise to avoid your own thoughts. The counterfeit of variety is intensity, stimulation. And when intensity and stimulation takes over, the cost is your presence. You are too distracted to be present. Even when you are having simple conversations, your mind is being called to social media. You are listening to the person you are with, half listening. I'm so sorry that if you've never looked through this lens, that some of this is going to feel very uncomfortable. But 2026 is the year to remember what matters and to see what matters. The third need is the need for significance or worth. This is the need to feel like you matter. This is an extremely powerful need, and we tend to default to certainty when variety cannot be met, but there's subsequent needs from which we default to significance. The need to feel like you matter without performing, without proving, without giving anything. You matter because you are. Sometimes other people's expectations of what you should achieve, how far you should be by now, how your children should look, what your car should look like, or how your house should look, they filter down to influence how we perceive our own significance. What have you accomplished? Where have you gone? What are you working on? Who do you know? The weight of this need is that sense that you are always being measured. That sense that you're always being measured and there is a chance that you might fall short. You might not compare to what other people expect or how you expect, which most of the time is what you've absorbed from. You presume that that's what the world would expect. So you tie your value to achievement. You overwork because being average feels like being insignificant. You chase titles, you chase applause because having proof of your significance has hijacked the reality of you actually recognizing that you matter because of who you are and whose you are. The counterfeit of significance is achievement. Because achievement we can point towards, except every achievement needs the next achievement because the satisfaction lasts so short. The cost of hijack of your significance is your rest. You never rest because there's more always to be done. If your value, your significance depends on achieving the next thing, there is no room to rest because your significance always needs activity, needs achievement. Need number 4 is the need for love and connection. This is the need to belong and be known, to be seen for who you are, not respected, not compared, not admired because of your success, not applauded, just to be seen, to be valued just for who you are. Unfortunately, when we are hijacked from this need, we develop that inner voice that says, if I don't give, if I don't show up, if I don't say yes, they will leave. I need to do what I can to keep them because I need love and connection. Every single time you say, I don't care, you are lying to yourself because you care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't even be saying it because you are wired to care. That's not a choice you get to make. The question is, whose presence and whose absence is worthwhile enough for you to care or to not care? Because this is not a need that you get to choose whether to fulfill or not. You don't have a choice. There has to be a group from whom you get love and from whom you get connection. It cannot be everyone. In 2026, are you willing to identify who are some of these people in circles where you no longer need love and connection? Sometimes it can actually be some family members. Unfortunately, getting to the point where you actually define it in such a way that you're no longer controlled by other people's expectations. You are the dependable one. We count on you. Getting rid of that weight, that persistent weight, that sense that your belonging is conditional on your usefulness. Your belonging is conditional on you saying yes. So you people please at every cost. You silence yourself. You can no longer say what is really true in your mind. And you don't just give, you overgive. You give to the point of exhausting yourself. The counterfeit of love and connection is finding ways to please to be loved, please to stay connected. And the cost of pleasing, instead of being present in reality of who you are, is your voice. Your voice disappears. You can no longer say your truth. The voice that you speak with is not the voice that is within, because you are in a far country. If I serve them, if I say yes, then, so the then belief is pulling you away from your truth to believing that if you say the right thing, if you show up, if you are useful, then they will not leave. The fifth need is the need for growth. This is the need to develop and become more, become fuller, become more present, to keep becoming instead of feeling trapped. Think of it as growth. If you try to restrict any living thing from growing, that becomes the most painful thing. When this need gets hijacked, this is when we become stuck. This is when we develop that inner voice that keeps telling you, I'm not ready yet. I need more preparation. So you create a plan for your plan. You create a contingency for your contingency. You prepare so much until almost ready becomes a permanent address. Some things that you should have started 6 years ago are still waiting for you to start them because you are confusing your need for growth for your need for certainty, such that your need to face discomfort and grow has equated to your need for certainty. You're trying to become certain in an area where you cannot be certain. Can you imagine if the baby needed certainty that when they come out, they won't cry before they're born? They will stay in the womb until how long? When they come out, they're going to be uncomfortable. When this need is hijacked, you have that sense that you are behind, that everyone else is ahead of you. The final need is the need for contribution. This is the need to give and make a difference, to contribute in a way that fills you up rather than drains you. The risk you can run into is fusing what you give with who you are. Identity fusion. Becoming a martyr, giving until you fall flat on your face because you're no longer giving, you are draining yourself. The desire here is to get to the point where you overcome that sense that everyone's wellness, everyone's well-being depends on your sacrifice. To get to the point where you no longer pour out until you are empty. You no longer depend on rescuing other people so that you can feel useful. So there you have them. Those are the 6 needs, fleshed out, hopefully in a way that opens your eyes. And I would like you to go back to the same question from yesterday. Same question from yesterday. Which need is most controlling your life? I want you to go to the chat box. Go to the chat box and type, what are the top 2 from what we have shared today? What are the top 2 that come up for you? Go quickly to the chat box. This is where we finish. Go to the chat box. What are the top 2 that show up for you? Continue sharing those. I would like you to do one more thing. If you could summarize your takeaway from what we've covered so far, can you write down, type 1 line, and I'm going to hand over to Gladys. You cannot afford to come late tomorrow because tomorrow we turn the corner. I gave you a promise at the beginning of this challenge that by the end of this week, there are things you will have seen which you will never be able to unsee. From January, for 90 days, we will do the return 90. What we are doing right now is one-dimensional. Return 90 takes the needs and fuses them with the core levels of your life, the 6 core levels of your life. And what that results in will blow your mind in such a way that you will never, ever be able to look at your life in the same way. I promise you that Return 90 will make 2026 the year you remember what matters. My name is Dr. Job Mogire. It is a pleasure to share this journey with you, and at this point, I'm going to hand over to Gladys Mahunyo.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate that Tari. Use some emojis and something to confirm that you have been here, you've been present, you've been acting. Thank you so much. I want to just speak to people to tell us, what do you think about today's session? What's your take home? I'll start with Mugwe. Where are you, Wambo? Wambo Mugwe. We didn't hear your voice yesterday. Can we hear you today? What's your take home today? I'm also willing to get a volunteer. If you want to give your second feedback, put your hand up. But Mugwe, let's have you first.
Good morning. I am coming from you live in Kiambu County, and today's session has been amazing, and not in a good way. Whenever we come together with Dr. Job, it's always a different experience, and this time it feels like I have been doing makeup in a dark